This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by Travalis herbicide from FMC. The concentrated formulation delivers 80 acres per case of premium control. It also has a low use rate and a built-in adjuvant. And with the 2025 FMC cashback program, Travalis herbicide saves you time and money. Visit ag.fmc.com/ca for more.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Monday, March 24th, and I am your host, Lyndsey Smith. And well, it's sort of an Agronomic Monday. We definitely have some agronomy type topics to talk about. We've got a product spotlight with Lemken, talking about their new planting/seeding tool. So that's cool. We're also going to hear from Scott Shearer with Ohio State University. Kelvin's got that report on tire selection, but more importantly, tire inflation, tire pressure, both for on the road and in the field, and how we might be potentially not making the best use of the tires that we have. So that's a super cool conversation. But bookended on either side of that, we're going to end the show with a conversation with CCIA and talking about livestock traceability and animal identification, and some of the technology that comes with, of course, managing those tags and the appropriate indicators. So hear that at the very end of the show. That's CCIA. We're going to talk about, or Sean Haney's going to talk about all the different options on the website, on the app, etc., of what you can be doing to, of course, input that information and also leverage it and use it on your farm. And, of course, where to order tags. Very important, everybody. But to kick off the show, as I said, it's sort of agronomic, but not entirely, because, well, yesterday we had an election call. That's right. Prime Minister Mark Carney, still Prime Minister in caretaker mode, but he did ask the Governor General to dissolve Parliament, and that means we are headed to a federal election, April 28th. And so we also had some other news happen over the weekend. Surrounding agri-stability. And so we're going to kick off today's show. My colleague Kelvin Heppner is going to join me. We are going to talk about the election call, the election ahead of us, and those changes to agri-stability. So stick around after the break for that. As always, we welcome your feedback, and especially now, as we are in this RIP period, meaning an election, there are a lot of questions. And so last week we put out the call on our social media. If you've got questions about how the government functions, about this election, about the rules, caretaker governments, all those sorts of things, you can call us 1-855-776-6147, or you can send me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com, and Kelvin and I, and Sean Haney, of course, as well, are going to do our best to get you those answers. So without further ado, let's take a break, and I'll be back with Kelvin Heppner right after this. It is time for today's product spotlight from Nutrien. It's Mike Howell, senior agronomist, and of course, host of the Dirt podcast. Where can growers go to find the latest in crop nutrition information to really dig into that ROI question on fertility this year?
We always like to recommend that people check out their local extension service. That's always a great source of information for local information. Also want to put in a plug for our website. That's nutrien-economics.com. On that website, we've got a lot of tools that growers can use to help determine their ROI. We've got a lot of research articles that are linked to that from your state research programs. We've got a lot of calculators there. We have a nutrient removal calculator. We've got an ROI calculator. A lot of useful tools on that website that growers can use. We've got an Ask the Agronomist feature. So if you've got a question on your local farm, you can type out a question there and I'll get that, or one of my counterparts will get that question, and we can get you an answer back on that pretty quickly. And all of this is free. It's an open website. Anybody can use that.
Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch Wheat Pete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. Don't put your yield at risk. Put your trust in proven solutions. Anvol Nitrogen Stabilizer, Super U Premium Fertilizer, and Tribune Nitrogen Stabilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. These products offer higher active ingredient concentrations imitator brands can't match. See the difference at defendyourn.ca. Well, as promised, and at a bit of a different time in the show, we're going to kick off the show with a news segment with my colleague Kelvin Heppner out of Manitoba. Kelvin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Lyndsey, and yeah, we have, it's something important to talk about here. That's kind of why we're adjusting the format, I guess, and that is quite the pivotal federal election that was kicked off yesterday as the Governor General dropped the writ, and we are officially into a federal election campaign here across Canada.
We absolutely are. You know what? I think for the first time, I get the sense that this is the first Canadian election that people are like, yes, let's have this.
And I think there's actually some polling that's showing that. Abacus had some polling out today showing that engagement levels among Canadians are 20-30% higher than they were in the last federal election, which was back in 2021. We were still in the throes of COVID and all kinds of other policy issues at that time. And this time, we've certainly seen the election ballot question to start the campaign, at least, is one specific question. It's been a long time, maybe some people say since 1988 when the NAFTA election took place with Mulroney and the decision on whether Canada should move ahead with the NAFTA trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico. It's been since then, since we've had a federal election that is so distilled down to one issue, and that issue, of course, for this election is who is best positioned to lead Canada in navigating the chaos and uncertainty and threats coming from the White House and from the Trump administration in Washington.
What's also interesting is that election was very much, free trade was seen as potentially a threat to Canada. And now we have completely reversed, where it's maintaining this free trade is the best thing for Canada. And that's what we are campaigning on.
Yeah, that is certainly an aspect to it. I think that is what a lot of this campaign is going to come down to, is who, I know some of it is personality driven and people like politicians or leaders with certain personalities in these types of situations. And that's one of the deviations or differentiations we're seeing between Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservatives, and Mark Carney, the new leader and new Prime Minister with the Liberal government and Liberal Party of Canada. But I think in some ways, I at least hope we're going to hear some discussion on different approaches and what Canada's strategy should be, whether we should try to become more independent. There is a lot of talk about that, about Canada needing to be able to stand on its own feet as in terms of our economic development and growth. And that's something where I struggle with that, especially working in agriculture. We know how important exports are to Canadian agriculture specifically. And for Canada to focus inward and only on our domestic market, sure, there are opportunities to unlock new growth when it comes to breaking down interprovincial trade barriers and that type of thing, replacing imports with stuff that's produced domestically. But at the same time, we're a country of 40 million, and we live next door to a country of 400 million, and of course, China wants what we grow in Canada and have in Canada as well. And so, I'm not sure that the idea of going. I think there will be some debate about your question about free trade, whether Canada should continue down the path of advocating for free trade or whether we should focus inward. And I think we're going to have some interesting discussion there as to what the best approach is for Canada going forward. I'm not sure enough Canadians realize how important trade is to our national economy.
Well, and exactly that, right? In that, I think the advent of a second Trump presidency and this tariff war has put Canada's trade relationships on full display. And for a lot of Canadians, it probably is either a discovery or a huge reminder that, when you go through your day to day, the average Canadian probably doesn't think about it, but many of our industries are fully dependent on selling elsewhere. As you mentioned, we're a small country, but with a ton of resources, a lot of land base, a huge part of our GDP is selling to the world and not just the US. So one thing I don't think we mentioned it. Officially, April 28th, is election day. So it is a very short election period. will that, I guess, and this is something we should sort of throw out there, two things. One, Real Agriculture with Cappy is hosting a webinar on March 27th about tariff and trade. Sign up for that at realagriculture.com or just zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. I'll send you the link. And then, of course, the other thing is that we are going to, over the course of this week, and certainly this campaign, try and answer as many of your questions as we can about things like caretaker governments, et cetera, because some of those are big questions that the audience has been asking. So there is that. But first I want to start with, we are going with essentially the shortest election period that's allowed, which is 37 days. So we've got 36 days to go. Kelvin, in your opinion, does that work better for one of the leaders than the other? And really this is a race between, Poilievre and Carney, but does a short election work better for one over the other?
That's a good question. I think in some ways it probably works better first of all, I'd say it's better for Canada to get through this and have a government with a mandate sooner rather than later with the threat of tariffs and more tariffs coming from the U.S. And of course we have tariffs on agricultural exports to China right now. So the faster we can get to the other side of this and have a government in place that is functioning with a mandate from the Canadian population, the better. I think if we have to choose between the Liberals and the Conservatives right now, though, I would think you could maybe make the argument that Carney and the Liberals benefit from a shorter election campaign because it's less time for Canadians to get to know Carney. So far, he's really riding on the not Trudeau benefit factor, and the longer he's under the microscope, the more I think dirt that will be dug up, and the more potential for things to go off the rails for the Liberal Party and for him. As Canadians right now, I think we're just scratching the surface in terms of, oh look, the Liberal Party has a new leader. They've changed. I think it's actually wild how we've kind of forgotten about the last 9.5 years of Liberal government and all the issues that came with that, and how almost 90% of Carney's cabinet members are the same cabinet members that were with Justin Trudeau for the last almost decade. And so I think the longer the campaign runs, the more people will become familiar with him, and the more they will realize that maybe this isn't that different from what we had and what we were so upset about just 2 months ago when you look at the polls. So, and for Poilievre, I wonder whether if we see April 2nd tariffs really hit the Canadian economy, I wonder whether struggles there, it becomes easier for him to separate himself from Trump and some of the people that have stopped voting Conservative or said they won't vote Conservative because of accusations that Poilievre is too reminiscent of Trumpian politics, that kind of thing. I think the more hardship that the Canadian economy faces from Trump tariffs, the easier it is for the Conservative Party to go after Trump and really and the fewer Canadians. So we know that from polling, I don't know what it is, 20, maybe a quarter, maybe a third of Conservative supporters are also friendly with Trump, and so the more impact we see from tariffs on Canada, I think the easier it is for the Conservatives to not alienate that base of their support.
Mm-hmm. It does, and it's so fascinating because, of course, we have, the NDP and the Liberal sort of mix, and then we've got the Conservative and sort of the within it, we've got the People's Party still out there on the right, still in the mix as far as what the base is, and so there is, of course, our own domestic politics, but then there is just this huge overarching pressure from the U.S. I mean, if you want to, I'm not going to. Well, maybe at some point we have to talk about election interference, but certainly election, pressure is coming from outside of Canada right now, which really does create a very different dynamic than I think we've probably ever seen before.
Yeah, we've always had that, though. We had Obama endorse Justin Trudeau in the past. We had, in some ways, some of that's to be expected in terms of different governments expressing their preferences. But yeah, and I think there's also more covert pressure, and that's what one of the reasons, or one of the things that has yet to play out in terms of our election and the political discourse is the results of the Foreign Interference Commission investigation into foreign interference in our Canadian political system. That's received very little attention in terms of impact or influence on people's votes. So that's something that I'm not sure will play a major role in this campaign, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see something come to light at some point.
Absolutely. Okay. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing some Q&A. Watch for it across our social feeds. We'll probably have it here on the radio and, of course, on RealAgriculture.com. But this is a news segment, and we did get news this weekend just before the election was called. We got some news on agri-stability. So Ag Minister Cody Blois, in his 9 days of Ag Minister, was definitely out there writing emails, as Megan Murdoch would say. But we did get some news on the agri-stability front. So what do we know? What has actually happened? Or is this just proposed?
Right now, it's just proposed. I should also note, when government enters caretaker mode, cabinet members all maintain their roles. So Cody Blois is still our ag minister until a new ag minister, a new cabinet is named after the election. So technically, and if an emergency arises, he is still the ag minister and still has minister authority there. But when it comes to agri-stability and the announcement late Saturday, so just hours within 12 hours of the writ being dropped and the election campaign starting, Blois announced that the federal government wants to make changes to agri-stability to increase the compensation rate from 80% to 90% and also double the payment cap, so the cap for an individual farm, from $3 million to $6 million for the 2025 program year. So these would be some fairly significant changes to agri-stability. If you look at discussions over the last decade or so, this is a substantial change to the program versus what has been done in the past. The big thing, though, is that the provincial governments have not yet signed on. And so our understanding is that Minister Blois was actually calling his provincial counterparts still on Saturday night, trying to get them to commit to it. Agri-stability is traditionally funded on a 60-40 federal-provincial split. And so here we have the federal government right before an election saying that it's willing to up or enhance some aspects of agri-stability here, and we don't have the provincial governments. And that's one thing we're going to be working on today and over the next couple of days here, is figuring out where the provinces and territorial governments stand on this. So far, none of them have come out and said, hey, we're on board, let's do this, let's make the changes to agri-stability. Should also mention that there has been no talk of any change to the reference margin threshold for triggering the support payment, so that's still at 70%. So this was all announced as part of support for farmers affected by the Chinese tariffs on canola oil, meal, peas, pork, seafood, so on, and so at this point, that your reference margin would still need to drop at least 30% to trigger this payment, which would now be 90% compensation rate instead of an 80% compensation rate, up to $6 million. So it appears again that the federal cabinet rubber stamped this last week, but we're still waiting on word whether the provinces are on board.
So, and is there? We haven't seen anything on agri-recovery yet. Now, agri-recovery is sort of the flip to this. This is usually the provinces ask for it, right? And then the feds have to join on, and it's usually for disasters of Mother Nature, floods, drought, etc. Where does trade fit into that? Because so is agri-stability what we would use if the destruction of the canola market continues, or the pork market? Is that where we use it, or does agri-recovery fit?
So normally agri-recovery is a faster way. Well, it takes a long time as well, but it's a way of government being able to send payments as soon as a program is initiated. They can send payments usually within a month or two, kind of thing, or a couple months. Here, and the thing with agri-recovery though is I did some digging into it. It is supposed to be for natural disasters.
That's right.
Market fall off like this would not qualify, I believe, for agri-recovery, but it's possible that they use the agri-recovery template in terms of the funding arrangement and maybe some of the process. They could potentially use that for this type of assistance program. I think instead, this is what Blois is showing, that I think they prefer to rather do it through the agri-stability framework. One other part of the announcement on Saturday night was that the federal government is prepared to, with provinces that agree to it, to issue interim agri-stability payments at a higher payment rate. So you could potentially get 75% of your estimated final payments more upfront. So rather than normally agri-stability takes 18 months to shake out, basically, as you have to finish the tax year, and then it has to go through all the different hoops to figure out what your payment could be. And that takes a long time, of course. So they're talking now about having a higher interim payment of 75% of that estimated final payment with provinces that could agree to this. They also talked about initiating targeted advance payments that could be triggered by a market disruption such as tariffs, or potentially another thing we have to, again, it's real. It's on the radar is what happens if African swine fever is all of a sudden found during an election campaign type of thing, where our hog industry is suddenly shut down or borders are suddenly shut down, that kind of thing. So they talked about enabling the payment of targeted advance payments as well, if and that this could be triggered in the announcement on Saturday as well. So yeah, a lot of this is lacking clarity, and it is up for interpretation what the government is federal government is all capable of doing when it's in caretaker convention. And of course, it's somewhat unprecedented to be facing the type of threats, tariff threats, April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs from the U.S., that kind of thing, when the government is going through an election campaign. Mm-hmm. Not ideal. Again, this is where, for the good of the country, it would have been good to have this election back last fall or earlier, not in the middle of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Kelvin, this is where we're at. I also, as an observation, the last time a federal program was rushed through very quickly makes me think of something like SEBA or some of our COVID dollars that were doled out. That was a mess and still is a mess that we're still cleaning up. And so at least we've got some program templates to work off of, which I hope means that we can speed up payments if they are triggered, without it being a clawback 2 years from now kind of thing, because that's always the risk.
Canadians, despite the disaster that happened afterwards in terms of inflation, Canadians really liked knowing that the government was going to send out money during COVID. And I think that's something we could see on the election campaign trail here, especially from the Carney Liberals, in terms of wanting to say that they will be there for Canadians, that kind of thing, despite the impact it had on housing, on all the different aspects of our economy where we saw massive inflation the last few years. So yeah, that's something that is going to be up for debate on this campaign trail. And I was also going to point out, we're choosing between Canada First and Canada Strong as the two from the two leading candidates. So
yeah, you choose.
That's our choice: Canada First versus Canada Strong.
Yeah. And you can choose which one do you think is which. Look it up. We'll find out later. All right, Kelvin, we're going to leave it there. But, as I mentioned, we will be back, later this week. Head on over to RealAgriculture.com, or follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all those. We'll, have some of these, in shorter, more digestible Q&A type formats, coming out over the week. All right. So we will be back. Thank you, Kelvin. We'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Growing corn? With Envita, you can cut your nitrogen and maintain yield, or maintain nitrogen and increase yield. Envita takes nitrogen from the air and turns it into nitrogen for your corn. It provides a right place, right time source of nitrogen to maximize your yield. Farmers who use Envita see healthier plants, bigger cobs, and less tipback. Envita is guaranteed to add more bushels to every treated acre. Start growing with Envita. Visit azotic.com to learn more. That's AZOTIC.com.
Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. It's now time for a product spotlight with Lemken, and we're joined right now by Ivor Bernatsky. Ivor, it is great to chat with you.
It's great to be with you too, Sean. Spring's here. Things are getting busy. Yeah, spring it's coming here. It's in the air, and a lot of producers are getting itchy to put some seed in the ground. Before we get to Lemken's entry into the seeding market, what do you do at Lemken?
I'm the North American marketing manager, so spring for me is a little bit of a longer timeline, all the way from south to north, east to west.
Yeah, and you listen, Lemken's got an extremely strong brand in the tillage market globally. Always enjoy our visit at different farm shows across North America, as well as at Agritechnica every 2 years, and really leading the edge when it comes to technology and tillage. Now, one thing is that some people may not be totally aware of, Lemken's made a very strong entry into the seeding market. Talk about that.
Absolutely. And, certainly I have a background on Lemken. It's really unique to be working for a company that's been around for 245 years. It's a seventh generation family owned company based out of Germany that started by making a plow in 1780. And since then, certainly the company has expanded. And so in the 1990s, Lemken came out with the solitaire seeding equipment through acquisition, and then did their own development and engineering. And now that solitaire technology is around the world. There's over 31,000 machines that are out there, have been made and sold since then, but really not well known in North America because we have focused on tillage. The first machines started coming into North America. The tillage machines came in the mid 2000s. And with that, we built out our dealers and our people and our facilities. And we're really holding back a little bit. Some of the machines were a little bit small, a little hard to get people excited about a 4 or 6 meter drill, in Western Canada especially. But things have changed. So we've re-engineered our seeding equipment. So we're now at 9 meters, 29 feet. And as a high speed seeder, we're able to cover the same area as a 60-foot drill. So we're hitting 8 to 10 miles an hour. A 60-foot drill that might be going 4 or 5 miles an hour is going to cover about the same area. So people are open to having that conversation. Then as well, in 2023, Equalizer, a South African planter and seeder manufacturer, joined Lemken and brought in some technology that we didn't have. Planter technology that uses precision planting, and also a disc drill, an air tine drill, which is really disruptive technology, especially for Western Canada, that we've been able to bring in. They were maxed out selling to 8 countries. When we heard of that opportunity in across the United States, but also in Western Canada, we really wanted to bring that here because it was a lot more than just a different color of seeder technology. It was totally different, disruptive, innovative technology. That's what farmers need. That's what we're committed to bring.
Yeah. And we've got some great videos on RealAgriculture.com featuring that Equalizer seeder. So encourage people to check that out. Indeed, I would think, combining the technology that Equalizer has, plus the experience that Lemken has when it comes to tillage, and because they're both in the same area or genre where we're concerned about how do we properly move the soil, put the soil back, and in this case, obviously we're making sure that we're putting a seed in the ground as well. There's got to be a lot of synergies there, so to speak.
Absolutely, and it also opens. It brings us forward as an innovative company that, again, over all of those years, and it's very unique to have a company that has that long of a spectrum of agriculture, in their rearview mirror. And when they look forward, they're looking forward in a similar amount of time too. So we know that it's our responsibility to bring in technology that is useful today, but certainly is a tool that might be used by more in the near future. And so with that, all of those sides are very interesting. Being able to do tillage and precision seeding all at the same time. So we eliminate pre-emergent weeds, we level out ruts, we create a seed bed, we plant at 5 or 6.5 inches and deliver a crop that's does incredibly well. We have a customer down in Idaho that just won an award for the highest yield spring barley irrigated crop at 201 bushels per acre. That, it started well with that machine, and then it was taken to another level with his agronomy. But, when we're playing in that arena, we know we're bringing something exciting to the marketplace.
Yeah, no, Ivor, is there, how do people find out more information about this equalizer? Is there demo opportunities? Just, the dealer network. Give us more before we conclude.
Absolutely. We're looking for demos. We're running demos all across North America, certainly in Western Canada and Ontario. So farmers can go to lemkendemo.com and request a demo. And if they can't get a demo on their farm, we just signed a partnership with Western Crop Innovations in Lacombe, Alberta. And we're going to be planting 4 different cultivars, over 300 acres there, another 100 acres down in Olds, and we'll be part of their field day on July the 22nd. We'll have our machines there. So we'll have seeded with 3 different types of machine, 4 different crops, and we'll be there to answer questions as well. So lemkendemo.com or that field day. And we can answer a lot of questions, as well as being out at the big farm shows, Ag in Motion, and the crop show in Woodstock.
Great stuff. Looking forward to both of those indeed. Ivor, thanks a lot for joining us here today for this product spotlight with Lemken. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean.
Hey, we'll be right back on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, right after this. Every farmer defines success differently, and every farm has its own unique challenges. Corteva Biologicals is partnering with Canadian farmers for their success, offering unique solutions that improve and protect crops from start to finish, based on each field's needs. Using proven, predictable solutions across all crop stages, Corteva Biologicals helps build healthy, productive, and profitable farms. Corteva Biologicals, we're growing together.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
Back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by Alliance Seed. Enhance your production potential and boost the bottom line by selecting reliable varieties of wheat, durum, barley, and oats from Alliance Seed. Elevate your fields at allianceseed.com or call 1-877-270-2890. We hop now to a conversation between Kelvin Heppner and Scott Shearer of Ohio State University to talk about tires and tire inflation, both for in the field and on the road.
I'm Kelvin Heppner for Real Agriculture. We are joined by Scott Shearer, professor and chair at The Ohio State University, expert in all things soil compaction when it comes to what's happening in our fields. And Scott, we've of course seen some developments in the tire technology front over the last number of years. What kind of impact or correlation are you seeing when it comes to measuring compaction in the field?
Yeah, there's a couple big things that I would key in on here, and we'll talk about 2 different tire technologies. We go back in 1960s and 70s, we had a lot of bias ply tires, and because tractors didn't go too fast, and we weren't quite as up on what sidewall deflection meant in terms of value. Then we went to radial tires, and now VF and IF tires. The VF and IF really refer to how much flexure we can get out of the sidewalls. When we let the air out of the tires and we get that sidewall flexure, the tire squats and spreads out over the soil surface area. Okay? Really, it results in a couple different benefits. We've reduced our contact pressures in some cases, which is good for surface compaction, if you will. The other thing that we're seeing is probably better tractive efficiency, okay? And that really goes to this issue of how much tire slip or wheel slip we're getting, as well as, if you will, the fuel use rates for that technology. Now, having said that, there's a lot of farm. Just because you bought a VF or an IF tire doesn't mean you're going to see value. The way you see value is you reduce the air pressures, but you got to be careful because you can't void the warranty on the tire. The manufacturer won't like that, and they won't stand behind any kind of loss correction or whatever. And at higher speeds, especially when you're traveling on roads, you got to be careful because you don't have quite as much latitude with tire pressures in terms of reducing them. Having said that, if you're not reducing the tire pressure in a VF or IF tire and allowing it to squat in the field, the bottom line is you're not going to get that benefit from that tire technology. Okay. The other thing is we have to think about what kind of tires or where the tires might be used and what kind of pressures. And so again, if we're able to reduce those tire pressures without voiding the manufacturer's warranty, there's a lot of value in that. But we also have to kind of be careful because of the speeds we're operating at, depending upon what those axle or wheel loads are. Another tire technology that's come along is LSWs. It really refers to the height of the sidewall. The wheels themselves get a little bit bigger in diameter. These tires get a lot wider. They could be 1,100 millimeters, at least some of the common ones. That tire technology has a lot of value in terms of big contact area, again, addressing the issue of fuel consumption and I'm going to say productivity. But the other thing about that LSW is it becomes a little bit more stable on public thoroughfares. And we see these equipment trains sometimes where we have an air cart or a product cart, and then we're pulling an air seeder or tillage tool behind that, and pretty soon you got some that's 100, 110 foot long or whatever. And the dynamics of that situation, especially potentially with some of these other tire technologies when you've let the air out of them, can pose some challenges for farmers when they're operating on public thoroughfares. And so the LSWs, they have their place. With all these tire technologies, there's an add-on cost. And again, I encourage the farmers to think about what that cost differential is and what that benefit is they're going to get from that technology.
I always thought as a rule of thumb, pounds per square inch in your tire equaled pounds per square inch of pressure on the ground. Yeah. That doesn't hold true anymore?
That used to be the kind of, I'm going to say, the rule of thumb. Whatever air pressure I saw on my tire, when I looked at the contact between the tire that was squatted and the surface area and the soil, I'd see about the same average pressure. We're not seeing that hold when we get down to some of these lower pressures today, though. So you gotta be kind of careful using that as a necessary metric. I will tell you, though, there's a lot of these VF and IF tires, depending upon how the tractor's ballasted, we can be running those down around 10 or 12 PSI and not voiding manufacturer's warranty. Obviously, you got to look at the tire tables to do that. But when the farmers aren't letting that air out of that tire, they're not taking advantage of that technology they purchased. You got to be careful too, because when a lot of ag tires fail, they fail because of the sidewalls. Okay, and that's when we go back to the bias plies. That was one of the ways you determine whether or not you had to replace the tire, was whether or not the sidewall failed. These new tire construction techniques allow those sidewalls to squat a lot more, and that tire to kind of I'm going to say bulge out. And, everybody thinks, well, the air pressure is too low. Well, you need to get an air pressure gauge out and check the tire. That's the best way to make that assessment.
Finally, Scott, when we're talking technology, what are we seeing in terms of developments or new things, new trends on the central tire inflation systems?
Yeah, those are going to become increasingly important, and that is when we're in the field, we get by with lower tire pressures. We get on the road and we have the same loads. The problem is at higher speeds, and again, looking at those tire tables, we'll have to actually air up the tires. And so these central tire inflation systems, I think, are going to become pretty important for a lot of people that are roading equipment between field activities. In Europe, it's a little bit different because they tend to haul a lot of their agricultural commodities to market using their tractors. And so it really kind of depends upon the situation the farmer's in as to how important that is to be able to change those air pressures when you go from infield applications to on-highway. I also think at some point in the future, we're going to see that tractor adjust those tire pressures automatically in the field. So think about that becoming artificial intelligence and some of the technologies that are coming along. And again, it's about productivity and it's about fuel use.
Are we seeing manufacturers integrate this into their actual initial build of the machine versus an add-on after?
Yeah, there's a couple different systems out there, and they all do the same thing. They just have different ways of accomplishment. Of course, there's a cost associated with that. But we're starting to see some of the component manufacturers begin to drill the axles, okay? And then the air gets to the tire through the axle. A lot of these other systems, you'll have to put some kind of slip ring on the outside, and there'll have to be some kind of air hose run to the wheel on the outside to where that slip ring is. And so both technologies work, don't misunderstand me, but the nice thing about when they come in the axles, they'll be a little bit more integrated into the overall tractor. So,
thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on RealAg Radio and hop back with more of the show right after this.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Back to Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Monday, March 24th, and a reminder to fill up with your local co-op this seeding season. With full tanks, you can avoid the rush and start your fieldwork at the earliest moment possible. Plus, with the Spring Early Delivery Program, you can save time and free up cash flow. Receive early on-farm delivery of high-quality fuels and delay billing at participating co-ops. Talk to your local co-op fuel team member today to arrange for early on-farm delivery and ensure you are fueled up for seeding. All right, we go now to a conversation with Sean Haney and CCIA. So for those of you with livestock, you probably know who CCIA is, and we're learning all about how the CCIA app and web interface can help farmers and ranchers make the best decisions when it comes to livestock identification and traceability.
There's a lot of options out there when it comes to traceability. We know that traceability is very, very important to the Canadian livestock sector, especially at CCIA. We're joined right now by two people very passionate about that organization. We're going to talk about the web store and try to create some awareness around it. There's a lot of options out there when it comes to where you get your tags and your supplies, but CCIA has their own option as well. Joining us is the chair of CCIA. It is Howard Bekkering. Howard, it's great to chat with you.
Thank you, Sean. Pleased to be here.
Also joining us is Jewel Smar, who is the National Client Support Manager at CCIA. Jewel, it's great to meet you.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so Howard, let's start off the top. For some of our audience that doesn't maybe know CCIA and what it does, maybe let's start there. Give us a bit of a rundown.
Well, CCIA is the agency that manages the what's the CLTS, which stands for the Canadian Livestock Traceability System. And essentially what it is it holds all the traceability information for the regulated species. CCIA is the responsible administrator. We have an agreement with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency that we manage traceability for cattle, sheep, goats, cervids, bison. That's all that's coming online. So hope I didn't forget anything. But essentially, we house the information. We own and manage the CLTS. Is essentially what CCIA does, and it's made up from a board of producers of producer organizations, and together we set the direction for CCIA.
Now, Jewel, today we're going to talk about the web store and some of the things that really provide, I guess, better service to stakeholders. What's all involved in the web store at CCIA?
So the web store actually houses all of the approved indicators and applicators required to be compliant for traceability. So all of the species that we are responsible for, you can find the indicators there, and then the applicators. So you can go online through CanadaID.ca and you can browse through the store, but you would be required to have an account to be able to purchase, which would be tied to your CLTS account that Howard just mentioned.
Yeah, and maybe hit on there, Jewel, the privacy consent feature as well that's incorporated into that.
So there is a privacy consent. There's two stages. So there's a privacy consent to activate your CLTS account, which protects you from as a producer from having your information shared outside of the purposes that we are housing the information. And then we have a stray consent, which is relatively new. So that allows you to help us to find lost or stolen animals in the system. So what that means is, as a producer, you can give consent for us to share that information should an animal be found with an indicator on it that is last recorded under your account. So that just kind of saves some time, if there's an animal running on a highway or whatever, and somebody can get a hold of that number, just speeds the process up so we can provide that. That would be the only instance that we would ever share information.
And like most of these kind of things, Howard, I think for producers, it's like, okay, is the user interface, the ease of use, the ability to input some of this information or get information out of the system when you're on the go, right? Maybe if you're in the back of a horse in a pickup truck, not necessarily sitting at a desk.
No, that's true. And there's been some advancements in our in the CLTS mobile app, which is the handheld device, or your smartphone, or your device. Essentially, it can work out in the field. It can work offline if you don't have internet signal or a network signal at all. If you have an Android phone, it can pair to your tag reader that you have in whatever tag reader you're using out in the field. It can scan your barcodes if you're using the barcode scans that come with your RFID tags. So, and yeah, many other new and exciting pieces in the mobile app.
Yeah, and is the mobile app, has it been in the marketplace for a while, or is that new?
It's been for a couple years, but it's been improved in the last year or so. The team at CCI, the IT end of CCI, has been improving the usability and the ease of inputting information, and it also has branched out to movement reporting ID and reporting premise IDs as well.
Now, Jewel, Howard made that all sound really easy, okay? But I know for myself and probably a lot of others, sometimes we need some help. Is there a support feature that can assist here? And I guess most importantly, on the farm, a lot of stuff's happening, on the ranch, that are outside of regular 9 to 5 hours. So talk about that. If there is help, can I get when I need it?
Yep, there is help. So if you're in the app, there is a quick little button that takes you to our CRC, which is the resource center. And there's all kinds of detailed user guides in there to help you step by step, whether you're using your computer or your mobile app. It's actually 24/7 up to date. And then there's always the option from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are here with a full team of 13 people to answer your questions for you, walk you through whatever the scenario is. So yeah, lots of support there. And there are some really new, unique features on there in keeping with the times. Everybody wants to have convenience. So we're up to speed on that too. So yeah, lots of really good support.
Are there typical kinds of questions that are asked? Can you give an example that comes to mind?
Well, age verification is one that we get asked a lot, how to create the birth certificates. So again, step by step there, or our team knows it like the back of their hand, so they can walk you through which screens you're looking for, which side of the screen you need to look for the buttons and so forth. So age verification is a common one. Movement will become a more common one because that's something that's new in there. So we've made it pretty easy and straightforward, especially on the mobile app, because again, you're outloading animals. So you want that right there so that your information is accurate, whether it's, reporting the tag information or your PID, your shipping information, it's all right there handy for you.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that it is everyone's responsibility to make sure your CLTS account is up to date and that kind of stuff too, right? Howard, industry feedback. What have you been hearing from people that have been using the platform?
So far it's people that I've heard using it, that the improvements have made a difference. I think the usability and the familiarity that more people are having with technology, I think is help that along over time. But there's always room for, there's always improvement. And that's what CCI has always strove for, is to continually improve and make enable the system to work better and work easier for producers to put information in, and that the information that is put in is correct and is checked, and the simpler you make it, the easier and the better the information is going to be, essentially. Also like to mention that CCI also has a feedback process in regards to any issues with our indicators, tags, applicators, any of the services, and essentially CCI doesn't know. We have a board of producers that have our boots on the ground, but it's always good to have the feedback from producers if there's an issue. If there's an issue with the tag, the applicator, the packaging, or any of the products and including the retention, readability. So if there's any issues, that you can feel free to contact the CCI office. We can get with the RFID number in place, or we can go back to the batch and any kind of quality control issues, and we can address them promptly and maintain the integrity of the database.
Jewel, we've been talking about kind of the full feature package here. And at the beginning I said, hey, web store. We haven't talked a lot about what I actually like, the activities I could engage in from a purchasing perspective. What's all there?
As far as purchasing goes, so you would go online, you'd want to set up your account. So that information comes to us. We would then email you a password. If you're not really ready to set it up online, you can call us even at our toll-free number and we'll walk you through it and get you all set up on the first. And if you've ever used Amazon, it's basically the same thing. You go in, you can search based on the manufacturer of the product, the type of product you're looking for. It's very user-friendly. You just go in, pick your products, go to your cart, enter your credit card, and away you go. And then we ship to you. It leaves our building within 24 hours within the business day. And it typically arrives 3 to 5 business days at best. We get lots of really positive feedback on how quickly it gets to the producer. Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's way quicker than I would have thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all done out of our location here. So it's all hands-on CCIA employees that are picking and shipping. So it's all us.
Great stuff. So if somebody wants more information, where do they go? Give us some of the coordinates here.
You can call our toll-free number at 877-909-2333. You can go on to the Canada ID site, which is canadaid.ca. All our links are in there, or your info at canadaid.ca brings you into my team as well. It's answered. Those emails are answered within the 24 hours within a business day as well. And it's that simple.
Great stuff. Well, hey, Jewel, thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.
You too as well, Howard. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Sean.
Well, that does it for another edition of Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I have been your host, Lyndsey Smith, and I hope you'll stick around for the rest of the week, 4:30 Eastern, right here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, to catch us every day. That's right, every day, 4:30 Eastern. Your regular host, Sean Haney, will be back tomorrow, and I'll be on the Issues panel on Friday, sure to have lots to talk about with this election ongoing. Have a great day. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this RealAg Radio podcast brought to you by Travalis Herbicide from FMC. When your crops need in-season protection against key weeds, Travalis Herbicide is the go-to heavyweight for combating large weeds like late-stage wild buckwheat, cleavers, and kochia. And with the 2025 FMC Cashback Program, you can save up to 15%. Visit ag.fmc.com/CA today.